Okay, we're gonna get started here. Just me today. Tim thought maybe golfing today in Lake Panorama was a little bit more fun than cybersecurity. So yeah, it's gonna be a little cold. So he was bundled up. But today we're gonna be talking about something that affects us all, and if it hasn't yet, certainly will sometime in the future. We've all maybe been a victim of cybersecurity. Maybe you know somebody who has. So just want to talk about the what it is, some tactics people are using, and then how we can protect ourselves. So we will first start with just a would you click it. So here is a suspicious email, or maybe it doesn't look suspicious right off the bat, but we've all seen stuff like this. This would be a classic phishing attempt from somebody who's trying to gain access. So as you look at this, at first it might just look pretty normal to you, or you wouldn't think much of it, and you would kind of follow the prompt and click. But what I would have you just think about and or take a step back is, okay, well, what are some things that should raise some red flags? First of all, if it's coming from somebody that you would think would be a trusted company, or maybe a bank or something like that, they probably wouldn't. Not always would they have a dear customer. They would say, "Dear Max, dear Bill," whoever it may be. They would have a more of a personal greeting. So that's just one thing, that not a huge red flag, but something to be aware of. But what you notice is that they're trying to elicit a fear response and say, okay, you need to take action really quick. So that's always what typically they're going to try to do, is create a fear response and create a call to action that they want you to act quick. Otherwise, XYZ is going to happen, and it's going to be bad. So then we have a link, and I'll probably mention it 4 or 5 multiple times today, but anytime you see a link, always use caution and err on the side of caution before ever clicking. Make sure it's from a trusted contact and make sure the link is valid. So even when you look at the link, it's something to be aware of. It's not from a secure URL. The URL looks really goofy too. Say for example, this was coming from like Homestate Bank, but the URL looks really goofy. It's not from like the Homestate Bank website. That would be something that would and should raise a red flag. And then of course they're saying you must respond within 24 hours, or you're going to have permanent suspension. So in this short email, just a few things to keep in mind, and to kind of put raise suspicions with this. So what is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity refers to the technologies and practices used to keep computer systems, electronic data, and your identity online safe. So I kind of compare it to cybersecurity to home security. So with our home, we've got locks. Cybersecurity, we have passwords. With our homes, we have alarm systems. With cybersecurity, we have multi-factor authentication, which we'll talk a lot about, which is a very important thing. With our homes, sometimes we'll have security cameras. With cybersecurity, we have system alerts that hopefully we have in place that say something is happening, or for a credit card, you just made a purchase. Is that actually you? So it's the practice of keeping our systems, our computers, our phones safe online, our identity safe online. Cybersecurity attacks, as we know, are on the rise. It's only going to get worse, especially with AI and the use of technology, and unfortunately, bad actors getting better at these attacks. But there's certainly a lot of things we can do to protect ourselves, and we'll hit those. And as I go through this too, with a group like this, a small enough group, feel free to stop me or share a personal story about something that happened to you or a family member if you would like to. Again, as we go through these, they're all going to be maybe not the term, but the concept is going to be something you probably heard of, or have heard of happening to somebody else as well too. So when we get into the life cycle of a cybersecurity attack, so anymore, these I would call good hackers, or these bad actors who are getting better at their job, they're doing a lot of recon. They're gathering information, especially if they're going after somebody individually or specifically. They're doing some background research on who you are, where you live, your marital status, where you work. So instead of just doing a generic reaching out to thousands and thousands of people sometimes, not that they don't do that, but they're getting a little bit better at using big data and using all the data that's available to us. Because unfortunately, whether we like it or not, or whether we know it or not, there's a lot of accessible data out there on the web. In fact, I can use a story. Jackie's husband, I don't know when this was. This is probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe longer, but he was in a meeting with Tim, and Tim said he all of a sudden got his phone out. And within a minute, he said, "Is this your social security number?" Tim's like, yeah. He's like, how'd you find that? He's like, well, you can find a lot of this information out there if you just know where to look. So it's very scary, but even if somebody has that information, again, there's still some stuff we can put in place that is going to protect us. So anyway, doing recon, gathering information, that is oftentimes what these people will be doing. And then from there, they're going to weaponize that information and deliver it to using it malicious tools. So this is we're going to get into some of the spyware and malware that they're trying to attack us with. Then once they get us, they're going to exploit it, use the system to gain access to our, our computers, our phones, and get our personal information and information that is that should be protected. When it can get bad, that's where they install some malware, spyware, gain control of our systems, and then once they're in, there's endless possibilities, endless things that they can do. So I kind of boil it down to 5 points, and I wrote them down. It's just gathering data, finding weakness, gaining trust, getting access, and then stealing money or data. And a quick story, my my wife's grandma's best friend, this was about a couple of years ago, but it's kind of a good story because it ties into all of these points. A scammer had got a hold of her, and it was a classic, hey, you are entitled to is like a $500,000 reward. And my Kathy's my wife's grandma, her friend is in her 80s and she's widowed. And so anyway, this person had done his research, knew she was widowed, probably assumed maybe she was lonely, didn't have a lot of people to talk to. So he'd done his research and knew she's Catholic. She's a big donor of the Catholic Church. And so for the first week or so, he kind of buttered her up and he became a trusted person to her. She actually admitted that she enjoyed the conversation with him that they had over this week or two. But the whole point was that she was entitled to this big award, and to get the $500,000, she had to pay in $50,000. And he repeatedly said, make sure you don't tell any of your kids, any family members, because this is going to be a nice surprise for Christmas. I think this time it was about August, September, somewhere in there. And this is going to be a great surprise that you can reward them for come Christmas time. So after that week or two, she fully trusted this guy, fell hook, line, and sinker, did not tell a soul. And I don't know if she Western Union or how she got the money to him, but she did. She sent $50,000 to these people, and it actually went to some bank in Ohio. So it wasn't some sort of weird offshore thing. Um, so a week or so later, I think she started feeling a little bit unsure about it, but then the guy reached back out to her and was, of course, trying to get more money. And at that point, she told some people and authorities got involved, but she was never able to recoup that money. So it's just an unfortunate reality and something that you're seeing more and more, especially for our grandparents, parents, the older generation, that these people are just unfortunately going after. So when we're talking about digital safety, a lot of these points we will continue talking about over and over again in this presentation, but using the same passwords on more than one account, of course, this is something we're probably all guilty of, but something that I would encourage you to try to get away from. And the reason being is because say you have the same password for Facebook and somebody gets in. Now all of a sudden they have that password and with software, they're going to go look at your bank accounts or every other account that they may want to get access to using that same password. And then if they get into one and you're using the same passwords elsewhere, next thing you know, they're in not one account, but now 10. So just something to be aware of, especially one of the biggest things too is email. Your email, if you forget a password or forget a username, oftentimes the link is sent to your email. Well, if somebody has access to your email and gets in with your password there, then all of a sudden they can go to Home State Bank's website, forgot password, resets going to the email that they now have access to, and then they can change. So email address is one of the biggest things you want to have locked down and secured, and I would suggest even changing passwords every 2 to 3 months. But you definitely want to switch passwords and make sure you're not just having it the same across the board. Clicking suspicious links, always use precaution before clicking any links, before downloading any files. Make sure it's from a trusted sender. If you are not aware who it is, pick up the phone and call. Always verify. Public Wi-Fi without a VPN. So public Wi-Fi is not that it's a bad thing, but just make sure that if you are getting on a public network, if it's secured, that's a big thing. But if it's unsecured, certainly do not get into any private bank accounts or any financial accounts. Don't even get in anything that you're going to have any private information stored into, personal information, social security, et cetera. That's something that if you're on an unsecured public network, public Wi-Fi, bad actors can get into that. Storing notes in your notes app or sending them to yourselves. This is something that, of course, if somebody can get into your phone somehow, then they would have direct access to that as well too. So just something to be aware of. Financial accounts are obviously one of the biggest things that people are going to be targeting direct access to money. I think one of the biggest things of being in a smaller community, when you bank local, you have somebody who knows you. If you're at a big bank and you're, placing or say, hey, I need to send $10,000 here and it's suspicious, they might not think much of it, but I think in the local banks they do a really good job of knowing that. But and then I would even say too, with any of like our accounts, so LPL account view, the account that our clients have, if somebody were to say hack into your LPL account view and see your accounts, yeah, they would know what you have in there, but they would have no direct access to send money elsewhere. Where say if you had a Fidelity account or you're managing some of your investments online somewhere, technically somebody could get access to your Fidelity or whatever that account may be and link a bank account and send money that way. So I think when you work with an advisor, whether it be us or whoever, they're just that extra step of security as well too, that they don't have direct, even if they can get into the account, which would not be great, but they would still not have direct access to your money. So just an extra layer. Next, we'll get into some common cybersecurity attacks. And whether you recognize the names or not, you'll certainly recognize some of the tactics. So phishing attempts, this is probably one of the biggest ones that we've all experienced more than likely. This is where hackers are pretending to be a trusted source and they're trying to have you download something or click a link. And once you do that, then of course they're getting into access to your accounts. So this is where you get an email from, I don't know, maybe it's a bank saying that there's suspicious activity and they're trying to act like a bank and wanting you to get in. So going back to that first email, that would be something that would be a classic phishing attempt, tricking you into giving personal information. So fake emails, fake text messages. We've probably all seen the fake toll messages that a lot of people have been getting, or another big one has been the delivery. You missed a delivery on a UPS package and stuff. Click the link to change the delivery or something like that. That's a classic phishing attempt. They're trying to look like somebody else, but it's not. So how to stay safe, how to protect yourself. First of all, if something looks goofy or off, always verify. One classic way too, so take it, I'll use Homestay Bank for example again, but say something comes from Homestay Bank, but if you were hover over the email, it would say Homestay Bank, we hover over the email and it would be some weird email address. So always kind of just check to see if the email actually matches up with who is sending anything to you. That's always going to be a clear way. Back in the day, it used to seem that you could always easily tell in an email or text messages if it was a spam or somebody trying to get information from you. There would be errors, grammatic errors, stuff like that, but anymore they've gotten pretty good about that. Obviously, don't click suspicious links. You're going to hear me say it again and again. And then look for secure networks, secure URLs, and look for correct URLs. So if it's coming from a credit card company, a bank, make sure it's actually coming from the correct URL, the correct website. And then make sure if it is a link you're clicking, it's a secure link. That's going to be another big thing as well. So here's another classic phishing attempt. I think this is similar to the first one. In email here, but the same exact thing is probably coming to all of us or has come to all of us in the form of a text message. Would you click the link? Well, again, we've got a generic heading or greeting. Couldn't deliver your package. They're wanting you to act urgently, get this done, get it taken care of. Click the link. Well, it's not a secure link, and the URL obviously looks weird here too. So, would you click it? Well, no. If we're thinking right, we would not. And then here, this is a suspicious activity. Wanting you to click a link. Well, it's just always have precaution and always think before we click. Password hacking, just the easiest way for people to gain access to our accounts, unauthorized access to accounts by guessing and stealing passwords. And No longer is this people just trying to type in a password that they think might be associated with you anymore. They're using software and really intricate software that guesses sometimes tens, hundreds, thousands of passwords within, minutes. So, and a lot of times it's random, but this software is getting really good at guessing passwords. Um, how do I protect ourselves from password hacking? Goes without saying, but strong, unique passwords. This is where we want 12 to 15 characters, ideally, in our passwords. Use uppercase, use lowercase, use symbols, use numbers. Um, Oftentimes, it's good to even use a phrase. Don't use anything that's personal to you, kids' names, pets, etc. That's going to be things that if somebody knows you at all, they're going to be able to use those pretty easily. One of the biggest things you can do and biggest takeaways that I would want you to have from this is enabling two-factor authentication. This is that second step, that second layer of protection of somebody trying to get into your account. So that's where you get a text message code or an email or a push notification to get into an account. And it might seem annoying, but it is literally one of the biggest and best things you can do to protect yourselves online. So even if somebody were to gain your password, they still would not be able to get into the account without that two-factor authentication code. I think this was years ago, but 4 or 5 years ago, I heard the statistic, but they said two-factor authentication would stop 80% of cybersecurity attacks alone. So just such a simple thing we can do to add another layer of security. It's all about just adding layers. We don't want one way for them to get in. Let's add, you have to get 2 to 3, steps in before people can get into our systems. Avoid reusing passwords. That's, again, an obvious one. So how fast will it crack? So talking about passwords and how quickly hackers can get into our accounts with the length of a password and then some of the characters we have. So basically software, if it's just numbers, can get into an account instantly if it's 8 characters or less of numbers. But the theme here is that the longer our password, the more symbols, characters, upper lowercase we get, the harder and harder it gets. So again, we want passwords 12 to 15 characters. We want symbols, we want upper lowercase, and we want numbers. You want to mix and match as much as possible into our passwords where it makes it virtually impossible for the hackers to get into our accounts. So it's just a vital thing that we must have strong passwords. And any more too, and we'll talk about in a little bit, but there's password creator, or like Apple has a password manager and they create passwords for you. And basically all you have to do is have one password to get into your Apple manager, uses Face ID or your fingerprint, and it creates those strong passwords for you. And then it changes those passwords every 2 to 3 months as well too. So the next we'll talk about malware and spyware. So this is going to be that software that gets downloaded onto our systems, our computers, our phones. And the intent is it's malicious software to harm or monitor devices. So either gain access to personal accounts, financial accounts, with the use of viruses. And then spyware, that's just simply what tracks activity. So instead of necessarily gaining access and changing things or sending information, spyware just kind of lays in the weeds and just tracks everything you're doing. It can see literally every click you have. It can monitor everything you're doing on your computer, view passwords. So something that somebody could do to just try to collect as much information as possible from somebody. How to stay safe, how to protect yourself from malware, spyware. Antivirus software is going to be a big thing. Anymore, our phones seem to be pretty secure with just the software that Apple iPhones or Google have on the phones. But on your computer, this is having the Morton antivirus or McAfee. Some of those things can just be a really nice thing to add some additional security. Avoid downloading unknown files. Avoid clicking any suspicious links. It literally is, it's split second before, if you click a link, as soon as it goes off to a site, they're in the system. So we always have to just take a step back and think before we click, before we download anything. Keeping your software updated is another big one too. So if your software is 2 to 3 years outdated, oftentimes Microsoft, Apple, etc., they're not always updating or monitoring some of the bugs that are in those old systems. So if you're keeping it up to date, that's going to have the most up-to-date protections in place as well too. Data breaches, this is something that we don't have as much control over, obviously, but something that we can still protect ourselves from. So a data breach is unauthorized access to sensitive company or personal data. We've probably all, been victim of some sort of data breach, and not always is it uh, something that they're really going to gain access to, because oftentimes this is something that they'll gain access to hundreds of thousands of people all at once. And so you're not always, doesn't always mean like you're up next, something's going to happen to you imminently, but still something we want to be aware of and make changes as possible. So with the data breach, some things that are usually going to be accessible to the bad actors: emails, passwords, sometimes credit card information. How to stay safe: monitor accounts regularly. So a lot of banks, I know Homestead Bank will offer this too, but curl protection monitoring, is that what it's called? Curl monitoring. I'm enrolled for that. I hope a lot of you have heard of that or are as well, but that's a way to protect yourself, and it's free, at least as a Homestead Bank customer. So anytime that you're a part of a data breach, or somebody has maybe gotten access to social security numbers or has tried filing credit on your behalf, there's always a monthly email or something is imminent. I think you get an update right away that something's happening on one of your accounts. So that's something I would encourage you to take a look at, and whether you're a Homestead Bank customer or elsewhere, try to get some sort of protection, monitoring protection in place. Changing passwords goes without saying, but after a breach, certainly change your passwords on accounts, just so nobody's going to gain access, unauthorized access. Public Wi-Fi attacks. When we use public Wi-Fi, we just have to use precaution, especially if we're on an unsecured site. So, anytime we're in an airport or a coffee shop, cafe, in a waiting room, and we're on an unsecured line, you just want to use precaution on what you're looking at. If you're getting into personal accounts, I would suggest elsewhere. I was just not doing that. And fake Wi-Fi networks, that's another big way too that bad actors can get into your account. So say you're at an airport and you see airport Wi-Fi, and then there's another one that's airport Wi-Fi _ guest. Well, if you're not really thinking about it, you might click the airport Wi-Fi _ guest, but that could be the unsecured network. That is a fake one that people are trying to get you to connect to. And then as soon as you're on there, they're gaining access to whatever you're looking at, whatever you're doing. So just always use precaution when using public Wi-Fi and what we're logging into. You can use a VPN, and something I would encourage you to do if you have that available to you, a virtual private network. So that's just an extra layer of security to protect yourself. Ransomware is the next term we're going to talk about. This is malware that locks your files and demands payment. So it's getting into your system, locking everything down. You no longer have access, and to get access, you have to pay us X amount of dollars. And anymore, this has gotten, since the invention and the more popularity around cryptocurrency, especially, this is a way that they're oftentimes requesting payment because it's untraceable. So they'll say, hey, we want $1,000 of Bitcoin or something like that before you can access your account. So that's one way that hackers are demanding payment anymore. It's always a hard thing because it's like, well, if I pay you now, are you actually going to give me access? Are you going to ask for more money? How do I know that I'm free and clear, or this isn't going to happen again? So hopefully this is something that doesn't happen to any of us. I don't know anybody personally that this has happened to, where they demand payment, but if anything, it's a fraudulent thing where they say, we've gotten to your system, pay us X amount of dollars before you can gain access back, but it's not actually happened. But as always, do not click suspicious links, attachments, keep your systems updated. That's going to be the best protection that we can really do for this. So social engineering, this is using kind of an emotional response, manipulating people into giving confidential information. So rather than a technology attack, this is going to be really an emotional manipulation tactic, pretending to be tech support. So calling you saying, hey, I don't know, we're from Best Buy and we're here to help you, protect you on whatever it is on your computer. And somebody that you think you can trust because they're supposedly from this particular company, and they're going to help you um, protect yourself. So that's something that we've heard of, or creating an urgency or fear. About 10 years ago, so this is before, of course, any voice manipulation from AI and stuff too, but about 10 years ago, Tim had a client who called, or excuse me, he had a client who was in her 80s at the time and received a call from her grandson, and it actually came from her grandson's cell phone number. And the grandson was crying, and I don't know if he was on spring break or he was somewhere, supposedly he was somewhere down south, and he was going to be arrested, and he needed $1,500 from grandma before, so he wouldn't get arrested. And don't tell mom or dad, because I'm going to be in big trouble. So she fell hook, line, and sinker. That they had his phone number, so they just spoofed his phone number. They didn't actually have access to his phone, but um, they never mentioned his name or anything. She just, since it came up as his phone number, she, knew who it was. And anyway, so she did it. She Western Union $1,500 to wherever this place was or wherever these guys were. And then a week later, they wanted another $1,000, I think, at the time. And it was the same thing. They got a phone call from the grandson's number. And this time he was a little bit calmer, but the way she explained it, you still couldn't exactly tell that it was him, but it could have maybe been him. But her senses were up a little bit at that time, and she finally, I think, came and talked to Tim, and she finally said something to her daughter as well too. And that's scary because that was 10 years ago, and now with the use of AI, as we'll talk about in a little bit too, people can manipulate voices. If they just have a sentence from you, can manipulate your voice to say anything they really want, especially when they're trying to call, say, a grandparent and create that emotional response like, hey, I need X amount of dollars, or this is going to happen to me. So social engineering is exactly that. It's just using that emotional response. It's getting either personal information or acting as if there's somebody that you know, and trying to exploit you that way. So be cautious with unexpected requests. Always verify identities. We actually have some clients who have a family password, and even when they call in with us, they prefer that we verify, hey, with the password that they've given us as well too, to just verify that it's for sure them, and for that exact reason, as they know that voice manipulation is coming on. So just trying to take extra precautions. Here are 5 scams we're seeing now, and if any of you guys have experience in these, feel free to chime in, or if you've seen something different. But the package delivery text, that's been a huge thing. It was probably a year ago. It seemed like I was getting one like almost daily or every other day, where you get a text, and there's always a link usually embedded in there wanting you to click the link. Um, Absolutely do not, never do that. The toll road payment, that was another big thing too. And that one's always tricky too. If you have been somebody who's traveled, it's like, well, did I go through a toll? Did I not actually pay that? So um, I I don't know this for sure. I would assume that you're probably going to get something in the mail, though, if you actually have an outstanding bill. They're not going to send you a text message. Uh, Same goes with like the IRS. IRS is not going to give you a phone call. They're going to send you a verified letter in the mail. Bank fraud with PayPal or Zelle. Scammers attempted to gain verification code or give remote access. So a funny story with my wife's grandma. This was just I think it was last Labor Day or something. Um, she is the head of the rug room in Carroll. So the rug room, they just make rugs and they donate the money back to the Catholic Church. So anyway, somebody tried getting a hold of her. It was a phone call, and they were trying to get access to the rug room's account. So first they were actually trying to help her, which is funny because she's horrible at technology, but they're trying to help her get logged into her account on her computer at home. Well, that took about an hour. And then she said, well, you went to the rug room account. So she kept them on the phone, drove to the rug room, and was trying to get logged into the iPad there. He thought it was a computer, but it was an iPad. So he's saying, well, type in the password or type in the XYZ. She's like, well, I don't have a keyboard. What am I supposed to do? So she's really falling hook, line, and sinker for this. And again, it was Labor Day, so thankfully the banks were closed, but she was attempting to drive to the bank and realized it was closed. And then as she got back, he said, well, something about logging into another system or something on her personal computer. And then she finally realized, well, I don't have a PayPal account. Even the rug room was like, it was Square. It wasn't PayPal. So finally something clicked in her brain. But anyway, it's it's very scary, and it's just something that we're seeing more and more. I mean, probably in the last year, we probably had maybe 5 clients, I don't know for sure, but have been the victim or close to the victim of bank fraud or somebody gaining access to or them sending payments. So just something we're seeing more and more. The grandparent family emergency situation, as I just talked that story with that Tim had years ago, impersonating family members in distress and needing money. That could be something that we continue to see a bigger and bigger thing, especially if people are able to impersonate and gain more access to some personal information from us. Fake tech support phone calls, emails claiming that a device is infected. You've got a virus. You need to call us or you need to give us information so we can get that virus taken care of. And so just trying um, to elicit that fear and have you take action quickly. AI is changing rapidly. It's certainly doing some good, but it's certainly making things easier for the bad actors too in this world. So how are we seeing AI changing scams? Well, one of the biggest things is that they're making a lot more realistic, making those emails and texts look a lot more real than they ever have before. Um, Generating professional looking emails, texts, and they can do it in seconds, and then they can also send that out to thousands and thousands of people. And as you know, if they send it to 100,000 people and they get a 1%, success rate, that's still a lot of people affected. And they don't care about 10, 20%. They're just looking to get that 0.5%, 1%, and then they're sitting pretty well. So there's a lot of publicly available information to us, unfortunately, whether we like it or not. But the people who know how to get that information can do harm with it. Voice cloning. Again, this is something that we're probably a lot of us are protected for the most part, unless on a phone call somebody's recording on the other line. But people who have their voices out there publicly, like something like this on YouTube or podcasts, stuff like that, or even celebrities, very easy for somebody to take their voice and manipulate it, and can basically from just a few sentences or a few words basically have a full library of things they can go and say. Deepfake videos, AI just getting a lot better. I mean, by the day is getting better about making videos look realer and realer. So just even I'm sure on social media, you guys have seen videos that you think look real or pictures as well too. But there's a lot of fraudulent pictures, images, articles out there anymore that people are using artificial intelligence to create and making it a lot easier to do so. Scams are just becoming faster, more personalized, and they're doing it on a large scale. So we know it, just use precaution and add in some of these layers of protection as we're talking about. So we've hit all these points again, but we're just going to finish it up with some takeaways. Be sure to use strong passwords. Obviously, easy to guess passwords are going to be higher risk, and reusing your passwords across multiple accounts is a very dangerous thing to do. So so my dog's name is Thor. A horrible password for me to go out would be Thor123. Go out and use a phrase. Go out and use something with a number of characters, up or lower. 12 to 16 characters, letters, numbers, symbols, and avoid personal information at all possible. So, and if you are going to use personal information, as I know probably a lot of you do, I've been guilty of it too, just add in characters and things in between there, so it's not just spelling out a name. Like there's an S in there, put a $sign, something like that, to just make it a little bit more unique. That's a great transition here. Thank you. So password manager, this is a password manager. It's something that Apple has implemented for anybody who has Apple phones, and it's free. It's an amazing thing. So instead of having to memorize 100 different passwords, you really have to memorize one, be your Apple password or Apple Manager, and then every time, and it stores all your passwords. So when you're logging into your account, it just uses your Face ID, your thumbprint, knows it's you to get into those accounts. So um, this is probably a huge thing. If you have Apple, you're already doing it. More than likely, I do not know about Android, but if you don't, there's other things called like 1Password, basically what Apple copied to put this onto their system. But password managers are going to be a really good thing. So if you even with these can allow Apple or whoever to create the password for you. So it uses a number of, a lot of times it's like 20 plus characters and it's all random. And they'll automatically change that password for you every 2 to 3 months or something like that too. So this is going to be a huge thing. And if anybody can explain what AES 256 encryption is, you should be up here presenting. I have no idea what that means, but I know that means it's secure. That's about as far as I can give you there. But um, and with Apple too, if you're logging into an iPad or your computer that's an Apple device, it's gonna have all that stored as well too. So that's, to me, I think that's a big way to handle that. And it's gonna detect weak passwords. It's gonna alert you if there's a breach. And that's actually happened to me before too. I had a password account I hadn't even used in years, but it said it was subject to a data breach. So and then allows you to automatically reset that. One of the biggest takeaways is multi-factor authentication. One of the easiest things you can do to implement, but is one of the best ways you can do to protect yourself or protect your accounts online. It's just a second layer, a second step that somebody has to get to access your account. So not only do they get your password, they would have to somehow get that text message, that code, that notification to be able to get into your device too. So that is literally one of the best ways you can protect yourself beyond having a password. So it is a huge thing. I'm sure a lot of you are already probably implementing these or done this now, but it's just a fantastic way. We've all talked about this time and time again. Avoid logging into financial accounts and public Wi-Fi. Use secure websites. That's where you're, again, looking for the S for secure when you're in a URL. Log out after using shared devices. Just take extra precaution. So more ways to stay safe. Keep software updated, as we talked about. Install antivirus protection. Lock phones and computers when we're done with them, especially if they don't have an auto lock feature. Avoid downloading unknown apps, links, files, etc. Set security account alerts. This is something I think is really important too. Like on my credit card, for example, I have the ability to set an alert for any purchase or alerts for purchase over X amount of dollars. But anymore, I get a notification for every single time I use my credit card. So just a nice way to say or show me, was this actually you? So, and the credit card companies, the banks have gotten really good too of finding suspicious purchases as well too. I just had a bigger purchase on my credit card, and right away I got a text message that said, "Verify, was this you?" And I think that's just a great way to just add another layer of security as well too. Report suspicious activity right away. Call a family member. Call a child. Call the banks. Call your trusted advisor. Somebody just to help you kind of navigate what's the direction to go here. Something that we've talked to some of our, especially older clients about, the ones who are really no longer needing more credit or is not going to go out and get another loan or get another credit card, is freezing your credit. It's just a very easy, free way to protect yourself from anybody going to using your information and applying for more credit online. There's 3 places you have to go to do it: Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. I've actually done this myself, and it's a really easy process. I just actually got a new credit card a little bit ago, so in order to unfreeze it, you just go log into the accounts, and I could put in a period or a timeline of when I want it unfrozen. So I just unfroze it for 2 or 3 weeks, got the application in, and then boom, it's gonna go back to freezing. So especially for people who know they're no longer going to be needing credit online, you can go to they all have a website, and that's actually where I've done it too. You can call. But the website especially is very easy to do, to just go and with a click of a button, you can freeze and unfreeze. It's just that easy. So I think that's a great way just to add an extra layer of protection for what to do if your accounts are compromised. Well, first of all, don't panic. That's always the biggest thing. Don't panic. Just calm down and just assess the situation. Change your passwords right away. Contact your bank. Contact the credit card company maybe. Contact your advisor. Go back to freezing, monitoring your credit, make sure, nothing has been taken out in your name, freeze your credit right away. You can freeze your credit cards, you can freeze your bank accounts. So those are all good ways to just stop anything from happening, just stop any damage from going on, and then report identity theft. That's another kind of that final step. And then our commitment to safety. So I think working with an advisor, like with Tim or myself, or any financial advisor, really just adds that extra layer of protection. So we always verify transactions. So anytime a client, say we get a call or not a call, say we get a text or email, say, hey, I want to take out $10,000. We always call that client and make sure, hey, just verifying we're sending you $10,000 to XYZ Bank, et cetera. Just making sure that's actually happening. As I talked about before too, with us, even if you access your online account, you only can get money by calling us and talking to us directly. We know our clients, we know your voices, we know your patterns. So it's just another layer of security that nobody's going to access your money or be able to take money out on your behalf without us knowing about it. Yeah, we understand your financial situations. We know red flags, and we've had clients too who memory starts to fade a little bit, and maybe they're having suspicious activity or requesting things that just don't seem like them, and that's where we have also a trusted contact for most of our clients as well too, especially our older clients. Something's off with this client, we can call them and just verify, hey, have you talked to your mom or dad lately? Everything going okay? And we've had to use that before as well too. So, yeah, and of course all of our systems are secure. I think the way Tim put it is he wanted it harder to hack our systems than to walk into Fort Knox and steal a gold bar is what he told his IT guy. So, our systems are very secure. And then LPL as well too just has a lot of additional security measures for us as well. So. Key takeaways here, 1045, be cautious online, avoid clicking links, attachments, use strong passwords and multi-factor authentication. That's going to be one of the biggest things we can do. Monitor accounts, check bank accounts, check credit cards, see if there's anything suspicious or something that didn't really seem like you. Verify requests through trusted channels. And be cautious with urgent or emotional messages that are trying to get you to act fast, act quick, and really without thinking it through. So that is all we had for you guys. Any questions, any comments, any stories anybody want to share?
We have a couple home state employees.
Yes.
How would banks typically call if they see a problem out if you're phone call, no email?
But yes, if you maybe get a communication from someone at the bank, they are going to leave a voicemail if you don't answer and say who it is. A lot of the scams, if you don't recognize the number, or even like the spoofing that Max mentioned, like they can acquire these numbers that look like a local number, or that look like, in the example that he used, the grandson's number. But if you let it go to voicemail and you don't answer, they're probably not leaving you a voicemail. But again, when in doubt, I would say call back. Something else that kind of came to mind for me, not along like the cyber security, but I think sometimes people, they see all the cybersecurity and they get scared and think, oh, I'm just gonna put everything in the mail. I'm gonna write. The one thing that comes to my mind is writing checks. That's another really scary way. Like in the banking world, that's your routing number, that's your account number. And not saying that you can't do those things, but that's where technology, I think, scares people, but it's also a really safe way to make sure you're doing business right. You can set up ACH, you can do all of those things. But that's instantly from a banking point, that's what came to mind.
Yeah. And yeah, that's another thing I didn't bring up too is obviously if you're getting those texts or emails, block the number, block the sender. A lot of people, I've not done this yet, but a lot of people I know have implemented a policy like Lily was talking about, where if they get a call from a number that's not saved, you first have to say who you are, what you're wanting, and then it goes to them, and then they get a little message, and then they get to determine if they pick up or not too. So that's another good way too to protect yourself a little bit, I think too. So, okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming. It's nice having the bank ladies here too for a little bit additional insight. So, hope you guys had a couple of takeaways.